A child turns the key of the golden box before the powerful elite. But upon playing the notes, she notices a detail that could ruin an empire. As the applause erupts, she carries a secret that no one is prepared to hear. What was meant to be a symbolic act turns into the beginning of a downfall that will make many tremble. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear. The Imperial Palms Hotel shimmered in golden hues as the sun set over Kew Gardens in London. It was impossible not to notice the bustling activity in the gleaming corridors where uniformed staff moved with military precision. Lucy Albright, event supervisor for almost 20 years, meticulously checked every detail on her clipboard, her brown eyes alert for any imperfection that could compromise the most important night on London's social calendar. Floral arrangements in the main ballroom, Egyptian linen tablecloths on the round tables, imported crystal glasses, adjusted lighting. She murmured, ticking off each item with her silver pen, a gift from her late father, on the day she landed the job at the city's most prestigious hotel. "Mom, can I help with anything?" Sophia's sweet voice, her 12-year-old daughter, interrupted her concentration. The girl, with her curly hair tied in a ponytail and still wearing her St. Monica's school uniform, observed everything with curious eyes. "Sophia, you should be in the staff room doing your homework." Lucy tried to sound firm, but there was a touch of affection in her voice. "This event is extremely important. Mr. Edward Montrose is going to make a multi-million-pound donation to the Renaissance Children's Hospital." "I've already finished all my homework," Sophia replied, her eyes scanning the ballroom where waiters positioned glasses in perfect formations. "Besides, I wanted to see what it's like to prepare such a fancy event." Lucy sighed. Ever since her husband Robert had accepted a work contract in Manchester 6 months ago, Sophia had become her shadow. The temporary separation had been difficult for the girl, and Lucy didn't have the heart to be too strict. "All right, but stay quiet and don't touch anything. Understood? Very important people will be here tonight." Sophia nodded enthusiastically, following her mother as she continued to inspect every detail of the event. On the other side of the ballroom, Ronald Vance, the coordinator specially hired for the event, gesticulated nervously while on the phone. Tall, with an elegant posture, and always wearing impeccable suits, Ronald was known in London's luxury events circuit as someone who could achieve the impossible. "Yes, Mr. Montrose, everything is as planned. The golden box is in the safe exactly as you requested." He adjusted his bow tie and compulsively rubbed his hands, a nervous tic that intensified in moments of tension. "You can rest assured that no one, absolutely no one, has had access to it besides me and your assistant, Marcus." Lucy observed Ronald from a distance. Although he was extremely competent, there was something about him that bothered her. Perhaps it was the way his smiles never reached his eyes, or how he always seemed to be calculating something in his mind. "Who is that man, Mom?" Sophia asked, following Lucy's gaze. "He's the event coordinator. He was hired by Mr. Montrose specifically for tonight," Lucy explained, returning her attention to the list. "Now let's check the main table." The grand ballroom of the Imperial Palms Hotel was decorated with white orchids and tropical foliage, creating an ambiance that blended international elegance with touches of British flora. Strategically placed mirrors amplified the already generous space, reflecting the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. As Lucy checked the seating arrangement at the main table, Ronald approached with his confident stride, his restless hands constantly adjusting his shirt cuffs. "Mrs. Albright, everything is perfect as always," he complimented with a rehearsed smile. His eyes fell on Sophia, who was attentively observing the decoration details. "And who is this charming young lady?" "My daughter, Sophia," Lucy replied, her professional tone masking an instinctive distrust. "She's accompanying me today." Ronald knelt slightly to be at Sophia's height. "You know, young Sophia, you have a special presence. I'm looking for someone for a small role in tonight's ceremony." He looked at Lucy, as if asking for permission. "Mr. Montrose plans a symbolic moment for the donation presentation. A child should open the golden box containing the symbolic check. It would be perfect to have someone your age to represent the children who will benefit from the hospital." Sophia's eyes lit up at the possibility, while Lucy frowned. "I don't know if that would be appropriate. Sophia isn't a guest, and—" "On the contrary," Ronald interrupted smoothly, "Mr. Montrose will be delighted. He always says his donations are for the future of British children. Having a young person like Sophia participate will make the moment even more authentic. Before Lucy could protest again, her walkie-talkie crackled with the urgent voice of the head chef complaining about a problem with the menu. Taking advantage of the distraction, Ronald turned to Sophia. "What do you think?" "It will only be a brief but very special moment," he whispered, his smile now more genuine, though his eyes remained calculating. "Can I really?" Sophia asked, excited by the idea. "Of course you can. You'll just need to turn a golden key and open the lid of the box when Mr. Montrose announces the donation." Ronald adjusted his tie again. "I'm sure your mother will allow it once she sorts out the kitchen issues." At that moment, the private elevator doors opened, and Edward Montrose, one of the most influential businessmen in the UK, entered the ballroom. Tall, with perfectly trimmed grey hair and a bespoke navy suit, Edward exuded an aura of quiet power. Beside him, Marcus Rivers, his personal assistant for over 10 years, carried a leather briefcase and observed the environment with attentive eyes. "Mr. Montrose," Ronald exclaimed, quickly straightening up and walking towards the businessman. "What a pleasure to receive you early. I was just finalizing the last details." Edward greeted Ronald with a firm handshake, his blue eyes inspecting the ballroom with approval. "Impressive as always, Vance. The Children's Hospital deserves nothing less than perfection." As the men talked, Sophia watched Edward Montrose with admiration. She had seen him in magazines her mother sometimes flipped through and on television, talking about his philanthropic projects. There was something about his presence that inspired respect. Lucy returned in a hurry, discreetly adjusting her uniform before approaching the group. "Mr. Montrose, what an honor to have you with us. I'm Lucy Albright, events supervisor at the Imperial Palms." Edward smiled gently. "The honor is mine, Mrs. Albright. This hotel has always been impeccable in its services." His eyes fell on Sophia, who was trying to stand discreetly beside her mother. "And who is this young lady?" Before Lucy could answer, Ronald intervened. "This is Sophia, Mrs. Albright's daughter. In fact, I was suggesting she might be the perfect person to open the donation box during the ceremony." Edward observed Sophia for a moment, his gaze gentle. "That's an excellent idea. After all, we are doing this for the children." He approached Sophia. "What do you think, young lady? Would you like to help us with this special moment?" Sophia, usually shy with strangers, felt strangely at ease with the businessman. "I would be honored, Mr. Montrose." Lucy, realizing she had no option, nodded in reluctant agreement. "If you think it's appropriate—" "More than appropriate, it's perfect," Edward confirmed. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to check some details with Marcus before the guests start arriving." As Edward and Marcus walked away, Ronald smiled at Sophia. "See, you'll be part of something very important tonight." What none of them noticed was the momentary expression that crossed Marcus's face, an almost imperceptible flash of concern, quickly masked by his usual professional demeanor. As the sun completely disappeared over the horizon, the hotel gained a new glow. Guests began to arrive, and Sophia, hidden in a corner of the ballroom, watched fascinated by the parade of elegant dresses and impeccable suits. The night that would change her life was just beginning, and she had no idea of the crucial role she would play in the events about to unfold. The time for the ceremony approached. The grand ballroom of the Imperial Palms Hotel was now filled with important figures of London society. Politicians, businessmen, celebrities, and doctors from the Renaissance Children's Hospital. Sophia, wearing a light blue dress borrowed from the Lost and Found department and hastily adjusted by Mrs. Janet, the hotel's seamstress, waited nervously in an anteroom. "Remember what we discussed," Lucy instructed, adjusting her daughter's hair ribbon. "You enter when Mr. Montrose calls, walk to the center of the stage, turn the key in the golden box, and lift the lid. Then you smile and come back to my side, nothing more." "Got it, Mom." Sophia tried to sound confident, but her hands trembled slightly. "And Sophia," Lucy knelt to look directly into her daughter's eyes, "remember what your grandfather Sebastian always used to say. In a rich man's house, a servant should be invisible. Do what needs to be done, and don't draw attention to yourself, okay?" Sophia nodded, fondly remembering her grandfather. Sebastian had been a doorman in high society mansions in London all his life, a man of integrity and observation. He always said he had seen more of human nature working silently behind the scenes than many who lived in the spotlight. Before he passed away, he had taught his granddaughter the importance of honesty and keen observation. "I know how to distinguish the real from the fake, Mum. Grandpa taught me well," Sophia replied, touching the small locket she wore around her neck, her grandfather's last gift. Outside the anteroom, guests applauded the emotional speech of the director of the Renaissance Children's Hospital, Dr. Paul Mitchell, who spoke about how Edward Montrose's donation would transform the oncology ward, allowing the purchase of state-of-the-art equipment and the hiring of renowned specialists. Ronald Vance entered the anteroom, his expression calm despite his restless eyes. "It's almost time," he announced, compulsively adjusting his shirt collar. "When I give the signal, you go in, Sophia." In the main ballroom, Edward Montrose ascended the stage to enthusiastic applause. His impeccable suit and confident posture contrasted with the slightly tense expression of Marcus, who remained at the foot of the stage, holding a small golden box ornamented with hardwood details. "Good evening, everyone," Edward began, his deep voice echoing through the microphone. "We are gathered not just for a celebration, but for a commitment to the future of our children." He paused, his eyes scanning the attentive audience. The Renaissance Children's Hospital has been a beacon of hope for thousands of British families. Today, Montrose Holdings has the honour of announcing a £5 million donation for the construction of the new oncology ward. Enthusiastic applause filled the ballroom as Marcus ascended the stage, carrying the golden box with reverence. "To symbolise this moment," Edward continued, "I have invited a representative of the next generation to open this box, which contains not only the value of the donation, but the promise of a healthier future for our children." In the anteroom, Ronald gestured to Sophia. "Now," he whispered, slightly opening the door. Sophia walked timidly onto the stage, conscious of the hundreds of eyes on her. The bright lights almost blinded her, but she kept her eyes fixed on Edward Montrose, who smiled encouragingly. "This is Sophia," Edward introduced, gently placing a hand on the girl's shoulder. "She will help us in this symbolic moment." Marcus approached, handing the small golden key to Sophia. The girl noticed a slight tremor in the assistant's hands, and something in his eyes. Could it be guilt? Intrigued her. "Go ahead, Sophia," Edward encouraged. "Turn the key and open the box." Silence fell over the ballroom as Sophia inserted the key into the small golden lock. With a soft click, the mechanism opened. The girl lifted the lid of the box, revealing organized stacks of 50 and £100 notes, arranged to impress. It was at that moment that something awakened Sophia's instinct. The notes seemed different. The paper had a strange sheen under the ballroom lights, almost excessive. She instantly remembered her grandfather Sebastian's lessons, who collected old British banknotes and often showed his granddaughter how to identify counterfeit money. "Always look at the texture and the sheen, Sophia," he would say. "Real money has its own opacity, while fake money tends to shine too much." Sophia's heart raced. The notes in the box looked exactly like the counterfeits her grandfather had shown her in his lessons. Her fingers lightly touched one of the notes, and the sensation confirmed her suspicion. The paper did not have the characteristic fibrous texture of authentic money. Noticing that Sophia was taking longer than expected, Edward leaned in discreetly. "Is everything all right?" Sophia quickly closed the lid, suddenly feeling trapped between fear and conscience. Should she say something? Her mother had instructed her to be invisible, but her grandfather had always emphasized the importance of doing what was right, even when difficult. "Yes, sir," she replied, forcing a smile as cameras flashed, capturing the moment. Edward raised his hands, receiving a new wave of applause. "With this donation, we reaffirm our commitment to the health and well-being of British children." Sophia returned to her mother's side, her mind swirling with doubts. Lucy immediately noticed her daughter's disturbed expression. "What happened?" she whispered. "Mom, I think there's something wrong with that money," Sophia murmured, keeping her voice as low as possible. "What? What are you talking about?" Lucy seemed alarmed. "The money in the box, it looks fake, like those notes Grandpa Sebastian showed me in his collection." Lucy gently squeezed her daughter's arm. "Sophia, don't say that even as a joke. Mr. Montrose is one of the richest men in the country. But Mom, I'm sure the paper shines too much and doesn't have the right texture. "That's not our business," Lucy replied firmly. "They're probably newly printed notes. That's why they look different. Now let's go to the kitchen to help with dessert. Our role here is over." Reluctantly, Sophia followed her mother away from the main ballroom, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. As they walked through the service corridors, the girl noticed Marcus in a secluded area, speaking on the phone with a tense expression. "It's done," she heard him say. The girl opened the box, everything according to plan. No one suspected anything. Sophia stopped, pretending to tie her shoelace to listen further. Yes, the press recorded everything. No, he didn't check the contents. Tomorrow, it will be too late when he finds out. Sophia's blood ran cold. Her suspicions were right. There was something wrong with the donation, and Marcus was involved. But what should she do? Who would believe a 12-year-old girl against the personal assistant of one of the most powerful businessmen in the UK? The celebration continued in the main ballroom, with Edward Montrose receiving congratulations from the guests. Sophia watched from afar, torn between her mother's advice not to get involved and the moral conviction instilled by her grandfather. 2 hours passed. Most of the guests had already left, and the hotel staff worked on cleaning the ballroom. Lucy, exhausted after the long day, supervised the dismantling of the tables. "Mum, I need to use the restroom," Sophia said, seeing an opportunity. "Be quick, we're almost done here." Sophia nodded and hurried out, but instead of going to the restroom, she headed purposefully to the small office that had been assigned to Edward Montrose during the event. She needed to tell him what she had discovered and what she had heard Marcus say on the phone. Approaching the slightly ajar door, Sophia heard voices. Edward was on the phone, his normally calm voice now laden with concern. "I need to verify this immediately, George. If it's true, yes, I understand the gravity." He paused. "No, keep this in absolute secrecy for now. I'll check personally." Sophia hesitated, gathering courage, when she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned startled, meeting Ronald Vance's penetrating gaze. "Lost, little Sophia?" he asked, his smile not reaching his eyes. "This area is restricted. What are you doing here so late?" I was looking for the restroom," she stammered, feeling her grandfather's locket heavy against her chest. "The restroom is in the opposite direction," Ronald replied, his tone artificially gentle. "Come, I'll take you back to your mother." As they walked down the corridor, Sophia noticed Ronald watching her with disturbing intensity. There was something in his gaze that made her shiver. "You did a great job today, Sophia," he commented casually. So attentive to detail, a rare quality in someone so young. The comment, though seemingly innocent, sounded like a warning. Sophia quickened her pace, eager to return to the safety of her mother's presence. Upon reaching the service area, Lucy looked at her daughter with concern. "Where have you been? I've been looking for you." Before Sophia could answer, Ronald intervened. "She got lost in the corridors. Nothing to worry about." The coordinator walked away, but not before casting one last significant look at Sophia. The message was clear. He suspected she knew something. "Sophia, what's going on?" Lucy asked, noticing her daughter's pallor. "Mum, I need to talk to Mr. Montrose. It's urgent." "What? No way. He's busy with important matters and—" "It's about the golden box," Sophia insisted. "The money is fake, I'm sure. And I heard Marcus talking on the phone, something about a plan, and that tomorrow would be too late." Lucy looked at her daughter with a mixture of concern and disbelief. "Sophia, that's a very serious accusation. You can't just—" "Please, Mom," Sophia pleaded, tears starting to form in her eyes. "Grandpa Sebastian always said that the truth can be expensive, but it's the only value that never loses its price." Lucy hesitated, observing the determination in her daughter's eyes. The same eyes her father, Sebastian, had when he was convinced of something. After a long moment, she sighed. "All right, but I'm coming with you." Edward Montrose was reviewing some documents in his temporary office when he heard a hesitant knock at the door. He looked up, surprised to see Lucy and Sophia standing at the entrance. "Mrs. Albright, I thought you had already finished your shift," he commented, immediately noticing the employee's tense expression and the girl's distressed look. "Mr. Montrose, forgive the intrusion," Lucy began, her trembling voice betraying her nervousness. "Normally I would never interrupt, but my daughter insists," She needs to tell you something important about tonight's ceremony. Edward attentively observed young Sophia's face, noticing the determination in her eyes that contrasted with her evident fear. "Please come in," he invited, closing his document folder. "Sophia, isn't it? You did an excellent job at the ceremony." The girl timidly entered, clutching her grandfather's locket as if seeking courage. "Thank you, Mr. Montrose, but—" She took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something that might sound absurd." "I'm listening," Edward encouraged, pointing to the chairs in front of his desk. "The money in the box. It's not real." The words came out in a rush. "I know it sounds crazy, but my grandfather taught me how to recognize fake money. He collected old banknotes and showed the differences. The paper on the notes in the box shines too much and doesn't have the right texture." Edward maintained a neutral expression, but his eyes revealed growing concern. "That's quite a serious claim, Sophia." "I know, sir. And there's more." She looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. "I heard your assistant, Mr. Marcus, talking on the phone after the ceremony. He said it's done and that no one suspected anything. He said tomorrow it would be too late when you found out." A heavy silence fell over the office. Edward slowly rose, his demeanor now grave. "Lucy, could you excuse us for a moment? I'd like to speak with Sophia alone." Lucy hesitated, but seeing the businessman's reassuring gaze, she acquiesced. "I'll be right outside." When the door closed, Edward sat in the chair next to Sophia, abandoning the formality of the desk that separated them. "Sophia, I want you to tell me exactly what you saw and heard, without omitting any detail." With a voice firmer than she imagined possible, Sophia recounted her observations about the money again and repeated word for word what she had heard Marcus say. Edward listened attentively, without interrupting. "My grandfather always said that fake money has an artificial shine that real money doesn't," Sophia concluded. "It's as if it wants to draw too much attention to itself." Edward smiled slightly at the analogy. "Your grandfather seems to have been a wise man." He stood up, walking to a small safe embedded in the wall. Dialing the combination, he withdrew a £50 note. "This is an authentic banknote. Observe the texture and the sheen." Sophia touched the note carefully, feeling the characteristic texture of legitimate paper money. "It's different," she confirmed. "The notes in the box are smoother and shinier." Edward put the note away and sat back down, his gaze now penetrating. "Sophia, what you're telling me could have serious consequences. I need to check the box immediately." He picked up the phone from the desk, pressing a button. "George, come to my office now and bring the box from the ceremony." While they waited, Edward looked at Sophia with curiosity. "Why did you decide to tell me this? Many people would have remained silent." Sophia reflected for a moment before answering. "My grandfather Sebastian said that doing the right thing is like lighting a candle in the dark. It seems small, but it makes all the difference." She touched the locket again. "I couldn't let you be deceived." Edward nodded thoughtfully. "I've known many adults who wouldn't have your courage, Sophia." The door opened and George Sterling, Edward's personal head of security, entered carrying the golden box. Tall, with broad shoulders and a vigilant gaze, George seemed to be always on alert. "Put it on the table, George," Edward instructed, standing up. "Sophia believes the money inside this box might be fake." George cast a surprised glance at the girl, but did not question it. He placed the box on the table and stepped back. Edward carefully opened the box, removing some notes and examining them against the light. His face gradually transformed into a mask of disbelief. "Bring Marcus here, immediately," he ordered George, his voice calm but laden with authority. "And call Ronald Vance as well." George quickly exited, while Edward continued to examine the notes, now comparing them with the authentic banknote he had shown Sophia. "You were right," he finally confirmed. "These are sophisticated counterfeits, but definitely not authentic." Sophia's heart pounded. Part of her wished she was wrong, because the confirmation meant something terrible was happening. Edward examined the inside of the box more closely, his experienced hands touching the velvet lining. Suddenly, his fingers found something. "What do we have here?" Carefully, he removed part of the lining, revealing a small hidden electronic device. "A tracker with a microphone," he murmured, his face shadowed by concern. "Someone not only wanted me to hand over fake money, but was also monitoring everything." The door opened again and George returned, alone. "Sir, I couldn't locate Marcus. No one has seen him since the end of the ceremony. As for Ronald Vance, he's on his way. Edward exchanged a meaningful look with his head of security. Check the hotel's security cameras. I want to know where Marcus went and who he spoke to in the last 24 hours. Yes, sir. George hesitated. Should I inform the police? Not yet. I want to understand what's happening before involving the authorities. Edward put the tracker in his pocket. This goes beyond fake money, George. Someone planned to publicly compromise me. When George left again, Edward turned to Sophia. I think it's best to call your mother back. Minutes later, Lucy was briefed on the situation, her pale face reflecting the gravity of the moment. This is terrible, she murmured, holding her daughter's hand. Sophia was right all along. Your daughter saved not only my reputation, but possibly prevented much more serious consequences, Edward replied. I'm indebted to both of you. A knock at the door announced the arrival of Ronald Vance, who entered with his usual confident air. Upon seeing Lucy and Sophia, his expression wavered momentarily. Mr. Montrose, you called for me, he asked, nervously adjusting his shirt collar. Edward indicated the open box on the table, his tone deliberately casual. Ronald, I have a question about the ceremony box. Did you check it before the event? Ronald hesitated, his eyes quickly darting between the box and those present in the room. Of course, sir. As per your instructions, I kept the box in the hotel safe and only removed it minutes before the ceremony. And at any point did you open the box to check its contents? No, sir. Ronald nervously rubbed his hands. Mr. Marcus told me that only you and he were authorized to open it. Edward nodded slowly. Interesting, and do you know where Marcus is now? I haven't seen him since the end of the ceremony, Ronald replied, his nervousness now evident. I thought he was with you. Ronald, Edward stepped forward. I have reason to believe that someone swapped the real money for fake notes and installed a listening device in the box. Do you have any idea who could have done this? Ronald's face visibly paled. I don't know, sir. Impossible. The box was safe in the safe. The hotel safe has access logs, Lucy interjected, speaking for the first time. Every opening is recorded with time and authorized person. Edward smiled slightly. Excellent observation, Mrs. Albright. He turned to Ronald. We'll check those records immediately. At that moment, George returned with a tablet in his hands. Sir, I found something in the security footage that you need to see. Everyone gathered as George played a video. The images showed an internal hotel corridor 3 days before the event. Ronald appeared in the video, nervously looking around before meeting an unidentified man who handed him an envelope. The event coordinator seemed tense throughout the interaction. Who is that man, Ronald? Edward asked, his voice dangerously calm. Ronald swallowed hard, his face now covered in a thin layer of sweat. A supplier. He was delivering material samples for the event. Edward exchanged a look with George. Continue with the recordings. George fast-forwarded to another video, this time from the day of the event. The images showed Marcus entering the safe room alone, carrying the golden box. Minutes later, he left with the same box, but something in his posture had changed. He seemed more tense, constantly looking over his shoulder. It seems we've found our culprit, Edward murmured. Sir, George called, there's one more recording you need to see. The new video showed a service corridor a few hours before the ceremony. Marcus appeared talking intensely with Ronald. There was no audio, but both their body languages indicated a heated discussion. The video ended with Ronald handing something small and shiny to Marcus. A key. The safe key, Lucy whispered, recognizing the object. Edward slowly turned to Ronald, who was now visibly trembling. Do you have something to tell me, Vance? Ronald looked around like a cornered animal. Mr. Montrose, I can explain. Marcus approached me a week ago, saying he needed my help for a special surprise at the ceremony. He mentioned a generous bonus, and I didn't see any harm in it. And the meeting with the mysterious man in the corridor? He was a contact of Marcus's. Ronald ran a hand over his face, visibly disturbed. Only later did I realize something was wrong, but Marcus made it clear I had no choice. He said powerful people were involved, people who could ruin my career. Edward studied the coordinator for a long moment. George, don't let Mr. Vance leave the hotel. I want to interrogate him later. Yes, sir. George gestured for two security guards who were now waiting at the door to escort Ronald out. When they were alone again, Edward turned his attention to Lucy and Sophia. "This situation is more serious than I initially imagined. It seems Marcus was working with someone from outside, possibly a competitor, to publicly compromise me." "What happens now?" Lucy asked, her voice betraying concern. Edward pondered for a moment. "First, I need to ensure both of you are safe. If Marcus discovers his plan has been exposed, and especially that it was Sophia who exposed him—" He didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. "Do you think we're in danger?" Lucy held her daughter closer. "It's a possibility I cannot ignore," Edward replied gravely. "I suggest you both remain at the hotel tonight. I can arrange a secure suite and guards at the door." "But our home," Lucy began. "George will send trusted people to bring whatever you need," Edward assured. "It's just a temporary measure, until we fully understand what's happening and locate Marcus." Sophia, who had been silent for much of the conversation, finally spoke. "Grandpa Sebastian used to say that the truth is like a small boat in a stormy sea. It may rock, but it won't sink." She looked at Edward with a wisdom beyond her years. "We did the right thing, didn't we?" Edward smiled, touched by the girl's courage. "Yes, Sophia, you absolutely did the right thing, and I promise I won't let anyone harm you for it." As George arranged Lucy and Sophia's transfer to a secure suite, Edward remained in his office, contemplating the golden box that should have represented an act of generosity, but now symbolized betrayal. Who was behind this? And what would be the next step? The answers, he suspected, were much closer than he imagined. The presidential suite of the Imperial Palms Hotel occupied the entire top floor, with large windows offering a panoramic view of Hyde Park Lake and Big Ben in the distance. Sophia had never imagined she would one day be staying in such a luxurious place, much less under the circumstances that led them there. "It's bigger than our entire apartment," she commented, observing the sophisticated details of the decor. Lucy nervously paced the space, still wearing her hotel uniform. "I never thought I'd be on the other side of the door," she murmured, more to herself than to her daughter. In almost 20 years working at the Imperial Palms, she had tidied and supervised the cleaning of this suite hundreds of times, but never imagined herself as a guest. "Mom, do you really think we're in danger?" Sophia asked, sitting on the edge of the immense bed. Lucy stopped her anxious pacing and looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. "I don't know, darling, but Mr. Montrose seems to think so, and he's not a man for exaggerations." A soft knock on the door interrupted their conversation. Lucy approached cautiously, checking through the peephole before opening. Carla Mason, the hotel's head housekeeper, waited in the corridor with 2 suitcases and some bags. Behind her, 2 security guards from George's team stood watch. "Lucy, I've brought some clothes and personal items from your home as requested," Carla announced, entering the suite. She looked around, clearly uncomfortable with the unusual situation. "Mr. Montrose asked me to handle this personally to ensure discretion." "Thank you, Carla," Lucy replied, accepting the bags. "I know this must seem strange." "The whole hotel is buzzing with rumors," Carla confided, lowering her voice. "Is it true that Mr. Montrose's assistant disappeared and that the police are involved now?" "I can't talk about it," Lucy said firmly. "Please understand." Carla nodded, though her curious gaze remained. "If you need anything, I'm at your disposal." She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "Oh, I almost forgot. Mr. Montrose asked you to call him as soon as you were settled. The number is written next to the phone." When Carla left, Lucy began to unpack while Sophia explored the suite, marveling at the luxurious details, from the imported toiletries in the bathroom to the mini fridge full of treats. "Mom, look at this!" Sophia exclaimed, finding a remote control that, at the press of a button, automatically opened the curtains, revealing the stunning night view of London. "Don't touch anything, Sophia," Lucy warned, stress evident in her voice. "We're already causing enough trouble." Sophia watched her mother carefully. She knew that expression. It was the same one Lucy displayed whenever she felt out of place, like at school meetings, where other mothers arrived in expensive cars and talked about their trips abroad. "We're not causing trouble, Mom," Sophia said gently. "We're helping Mr. Montrose. If we hadn't spoken about the fake money, he would have been deceived." Lucy stopped what she was doing and sat on the edge of the bed, pulling Sophia close. "You're right, darling. I'm proud of what you did today." Your grandfather would be too. The suite phone rang, startling both of them. Lucy answered cautiously. Mrs. Albright? Edward Montrose speaking. The businessman's deep voice came through the receiver. I hope you are comfortable. Yes, sir. The suite is extraordinary. So much luxury wasn't necessary. On the contrary, it's the least I can do. There was a brief pause before he continued. I have news. George reviewed all the security footage, and we've discovered more about Marcus's movements. He neutralized 2 of my security guards and fled through the underground parking lot around midnight. He hurt someone? Lucy asked, concerned. Only sedatives, fortunately. Both are fine, just with headaches. Edward paused again. The most worrying thing is that we found evidence that Marcus kept a detailed dossier on my routine. Addresses, close associates. This suggests a well-planned conspiracy. My God, Lucy murmured, instinctively looking at Sophia, who was playing with her grandfather's locket. That's why I insist you remain under protection, Edward continued. Early tomorrow morning I'll have a meeting with my lawyers and possibly with authorities. In the meantime, George will remain at the hotel with a reinforced team. I understand, Lucy replied, trying to maintain her composure. Thank you for everything, Mr. Montrose. Please, under these circumstances, call me Edward. His voice softened. Rest well, we'll talk in the morning. After hanging up, Lucy repeated the conversation to Sophia, omitting only the most disturbing details about Marcus's dossier. This sounds like something out of a spy movie, Sophia commented, her eyes simultaneously alarmed and excited by the unexpected adventure. Unfortunately, it's very real, Lucy sighed. Now let's try to get some sleep. It's been a long day for both of us. Hours later, as Lucy slept exhausted, Sophia remained awake watching the city lights. Her restless mind couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened. Who was behind this conspiracy against Edward Montrose? And why choose a charity event for a children's hospital as the stage for the coup? A subtle noise interrupted her thoughts, something like a metallic scratch coming from the suite door. Sophia froze, straining her ears. The sound came again, this time accompanied by a slight click, like someone trying to unlock the door. The girl's heart pounded. Someone was trying to get in. As silently as possible, Sophia approached the bed where her mother was sleeping. Mom, she whispered urgently, shaking Lucy. Someone's at the door. Lucy woke immediately, years of maternal instinct making her alert without hesitation. What? Someone's trying to open the door, Sophia repeated, her voice barely audible. The sound at the lock became more insistent. Lucy quickly got up, pulling Sophia into the bathroom. Stay here and lock the door, she instructed in a whisper. If you hear anything suspicious, use the bathroom phone to call reception. The emergency number is 9. And you? I'm going to check through the peephole. The guards are right outside. Before Sophia could protest, Lucy closed the bathroom door. Reluctantly, the girl turned the lock and pressed her ear to the door, trying to hear what was happening in the bedroom. Outside the bathroom, Lucy cautiously approached the main door, mentally calculating how many steps separated her from the phone if she needed to call for help. The noise at the lock had ceased, but now she could hear breathing on the other side. Someone was definitely there. Gathering courage, Lucy peeked through the peephole. The corridor seemed empty, but something partially blocked her view. She instinctively recoiled, panic beginning to set in. She was about to run to the phone when a bang on the door made her scream. At the same instant, agitated voices sounded in the corridor, followed by sounds of struggle. Lucy remained paralyzed until a familiar voice called from the other side. Mrs. Albright? It's Edward Montrose. Is everything all right in there? Trembling, Lucy approached the peephole again and saw Edward and George, along with 2 other security guards, holding a man on the floor. Yes, she replied, her voice shaky. We're fine. Can you open the door? We need to make sure everything is safe. With trembling fingers, Lucy unlocked the door. Edward entered quickly, his face marked with concern. Thank goodness you're all right, he said, visibly relieved. I had a strange feeling and decided to personally check on your safety. We arrived just in time. What happened? Lucy asked, as Sophia hesitantly emerged from the bathroom. Someone tried to break into your suite, Edward explained gravely. George intercepted him, but he managed to escape through the service corridors. Was it Marcus? Sophia approached, still clutching her grandfather's locket. We couldn't clearly identify him, George replied, entering the suite. He was wearing a hood and acted with extreme speed. He seemed to have detailed knowledge of the hotel's layout. But he left this behind, Edward added, showing a small object that gleamed in his palm, a lapel pin with an engraved symbol. Do you recognize this, George? The head of security examined the pin carefully. It's the symbol of Dawnstar Construction, if I'm not mistaken. Edward nodded somberly. Victor Maxwell. Who is Victor Maxwell? Sophia asked, curious despite her fear. The owner of Dawnstar Construction, Edward explained, an old competitor. We've had several business disputes over the years. Do you think he's behind all this? Lucy sat down, her legs still trembling from the fright. It's a possibility we cannot ignore, Edward replied. Dawnstar lost an important bid to Montrose Holdings last month, a contract worth almost £1 billion for a business complex in central London. George, who was examining the door lock, turned to Edward. Sir, we cannot keep Mrs. Albright and her daughter here. Even with reinforced security, the hotel has many access points and temporary staff that we cannot properly vet. Edward agreed. You're right. We need to transfer them to a safer location immediately. He turned to Lucy. I have a house in Windsor that few people know about. It's isolated and has an advanced security system. I suggest you both stay there until we resolve this situation. Lucy hesitated, her mind swirling with concerns. My job, Sophia's school. I'll arrange everything with the hotel management, Edward assured. As for school, Sophia can have online lessons temporarily. It's only for a few days until we ensure there are no more risks. Sophia watched the conversation in silence, absorbing the gravity of the situation. What began as a simple charity event had turned into something much larger and more dangerous than anyone could have predicted. Perhaps we should just go to my sister's house in Croydon, Lucy suggested, still reluctant to accept so much help. No one would look for us there. Edward shook his head. If Victor Maxwell is truly involved in this, he has the resources to find you in any public place. My house in Windsor is the safest location right now. And what about you? Sophia asked, looking directly at Edward. You're also in danger, aren't you? The businessman smiled at the girl's shrewdness. I've dealt with aggressive business rivals throughout my career, Sophia. George and my security team are excellent at what they do. We need to move now, George interjected. I suggest using the service exit and changing vehicles at least twice on the way to Windsor. Edward nodded. Mrs. Albright. Lucy, I know all this seems extreme, but believe me when I say that your safety is my absolute priority right now. Lucy looked at Sophia, seeing in her daughter's eyes a determination that reminded her of the girl's father, the same quiet courage that had attracted her years ago. Taking a deep breath, she made her decision. We'll go to Windsor, she finally agreed. But as soon as all this is over, we'll return to our normal lives. Of course, Edward assured, though something in his gaze suggested he had other plans. As mother and daughter hastily gathered their few belongings, Edward watched the city from the suite's large windows, his expression reflecting the gravity of his thoughts. The Dawnstar Construction pin in his hand confirmed his darkest suspicions. If Victor Maxwell was truly behind this conspiracy, the situation was even more dangerous than he imagined. The corporate war that had been unfolding behind the scenes for years had finally emerged from the shadows, and now threatened not only his reputation, but the safety of innocents. We're ready, Lucy announced, holding a small bag. Edward turned, forcing a reassuring smile. Excellent. George has already cleared the way. As the small group discreetly left through the service corridors of the Imperial Palms Hotel, the sky began to lighten on the horizon. A new day dawned in London, bringing with it the promise of even more surprising revelations. Edward Montrose's house in Windsor was an elegant neoclassical building hidden among the hills of the home counties region. Surrounded by meticulously maintained gardens and protected by a state-of-the-art security system, the property offered the perfect refuge away from the curious eyes of London society. It's like a palace, Sophia murmured, marveling at the architectural details as the car passed through the wrought-iron gates. After a tense journey, with multiple vehicle changes as planned by George, the group finally arrived at their destination. Edward had travelled separately as a safety measure and was already awaiting them at the main entrance. "Welcome to Pine Ridge Manor," he said, greeting Lucy and Sophia with a tired smile. The dark circles under his eyes revealed a sleepless night. "I hope the journey wasn't too exhausting." "We're fine," Lucy replied, though her pale face indicated otherwise. "Just a little shaken by everything that's happening." A middle-aged woman, dressed in a discreet uniform, approached. "Teresa has prepared the blue suite for the ladies," she informed them. "I can take you so you can rest a bit before breakfast." "Thank you, Teresa," Edward replied. "Mrs. Albright, this is Teresa Olson, the house's housekeeper for over 15 years. She and her husband Anthony are completely trustworthy." Teresa guided Lucy and Sophia through the mansion's interior, through corridors decorated with British artworks and antique furniture. The Blue Suite, as the name suggested, was a set of rooms decorated in shades of blue and white, with large windows offering a spectacular view of the hills. "It's beautiful," Sophia commented, approaching the window. "You can see the whole town down there. Breakfast will be served in an hour, but I can bring something beforehand if you wish," Teresa offered gently. "No need, thank you," Lucy replied. "I think we both need a shower, and perhaps a moment to process everything that happened." When Teresa left, Sophia explored the room with childlike curiosity, opening empty drawers and testing the softness of the bed. "Mom, do you think that man was really from the rival company? The one called Victor Maxwell?" Lucy sighed, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I don't know, darling. All this seems so unreal. Yesterday morning it was just the two of us in our small apartment in Chelsea, and now we're involved in some kind of corporate war." "Like in the TV shows Aunt Clara watches," Sophia observed, drawing a reluctant smile from her mother. "Real life isn't a TV show, Sophia. The consequences are real and people can get really hurt." Sophia sat next to her mother. "But we did the right thing, didn't we? Grandpa Sebastian would be proud." Lucy hugged her daughter, impressed once again by her maturity. "Yes, he would be very proud of you, my little detective." An hour later, refreshed after hot showers and clean clothes, mother and daughter were led to the dining room, where Edward awaited them. The table was set with a hearty English breakfast: bacon, eggs, toast, tropical fruits, fresh coffee, and natural juices. "Please make yourselves at home," Edward invited, indicating their seats. "This is all very kind, Mr. Montrose," Lucy began, still uncomfortable with so much hospitality. "But I can't help but think we're causing a huge disruption in your life." Edward poured himself some coffee before replying. "On the contrary, Lucy, you averted a disaster that could have cost much more than a few nights at my country house." He paused. "Furthermore, George informed me that there was an attempted break-in at your apartment this morning." Lucy paled. "What?" "Fortunately, the team I sent to retrieve your belongings was monitoring the location and prevented the intrusion. This confirms our suspicions. Both of you are targets now." Sophia, who was biting into a piece of toast, looked at the businessman with wide eyes. "Why would someone do that? We don't have anything valuable." "You have something very valuable, Sophia," Edward replied softly. "Knowledge. You can identify the fake money and testify against those involved in the conspiracy." "Any news about Marcus?" Lucy asked, trying to maintain her composure in the face of the alarming news. "He hasn't been located yet, but we're tracking his movements. As for Ronald Vance," Edward took a sip of coffee, "he spent the night being interrogated by George and finally started talking this morning." "And what did he say?" Sophia leaned forward, intrigued. "Apparently, Marcus recruited him about a month ago, offering a considerable sum to secure his cooperation. Ronald initially believed it was just a surprise for the event, but soon realized something illicit was underway." "And he still participated?" Lucy questioned. "According to him, Marcus threatened him when he tried to back out. He mentioned powerful people who could destroy his reputation in the events market." Edward paused. "The most interesting thing is that Ronald confirms the connection to Dawnstar Construction. He saw Marcus meeting with an executive from the company weeks before the event." "So Victor Maxwell really is behind all this?" Lucy asked. "All indications point to it, although we don't yet have concrete proof to directly involve his name." Edward placed his cup on the table. "I'm organizing a press conference for this afternoon. I will announce that I'm doubling the donation to the Renaissance Children's Hospital and clarify that there was a misunderstanding at the original ceremony." "You're not going to expose the fraud?" Lucy seemed surprised. "Not yet. If we publicly announce what happened before we have all the evidence, Victor Maxwell will have time to cover his tracks. Besides, Edward looked significantly at Sophia, that could put you two in even greater danger. Breakfast was interrupted by George's arrival, who entered the room in a hurry. Sir, we received information that Marcus was seen boarding a flight to Birmingham this morning. I've already alerted our team there to monitor the airports. Excellent, George, Edward replied. And what about the other matter we discussed? The head of security cast a quick glance at Lucy and Sophia before responding. It's being implemented as per your instructions. Edward nodded, satisfied. Lucy, Sophia, after breakfast, I'd like you to see the rest of the property. Teresa and Anthony will show you the areas where you can move freely and explain the security protocols. How long will we stay here? Lucy asked, trying to mentally plan the next steps. At least until the end of the week, Edward replied. I want to ensure the situation is completely under control before you return to your normal routines. Sophia, who had been quiet for a few moments, suddenly addressed Edward. Mr. Montrose, can I ask you a question? Of course, Sophia. Why would Mr. Victor Maxwell do something like this? Is it just because of the contract he lost? Edward smiled slightly, impressed once again by the girl's perceptiveness. An excellent question, Sophia, and the answer is no, it's not just about the contract. My history with Victor Maxwell goes back almost 20 years. He paused, carefully choosing his words. Let's say we have different philosophies on how to conduct business. While I prioritize sustainability and social impact in my projects, Victor has always put profit above everything else. And that created a feud, Sophia asked, fascinated. Something like that. Our last big dispute was particularly fierce. We both competed to build the new Thames Gateway Business Centre. The project was worth billions and had the potential to transform the entire port area of London. My proposal included affordable housing, green areas and jobs for the local community. His focused only on luxury offices. And you won, Sophia concluded. Yes, we won. It was a harsh blow for Dawnstar, which was already facing financial problems after some corruption scandals. Edward drank the last sip of his coffee. I believe Victor saw the charity event as a perfect opportunity to publicly discredit me. If a businessman known for philanthropy were caught donating fake money to a children's hospital, it would be a huge scandal, Lucy completed, finally understanding the magnitude of the situation. Exactly. My reputation would be ruined, Montrose Holdings shares would plummet, and possibly the Thames Gateway Business Centre contract would be revoked. Breakfast continued with lighter conversation, though tension remained in the background. After the meal, as promised, Teresa and Anthony guided Lucy and Sophia through the mansion's main spaces and gardens, explaining the security measures implemented. The property is completely fenced and monitored by cameras, explained Anthony, a robust middle-aged man with a military bearing. There are guards at the entrances and teams making constant rounds. You are safer here than anywhere else. While exploring the gardens, Sophia noticed something curious. Who is that man? She asked, pointing to a gardener working in a rosebed. That's Paul, the new gardening assistant, Teresa replied. He started this week. Sophia observed the man carefully. There was something familiar in his movements, in the way he constantly adjusted his cap and rubbed his hands after each task. She had seen these gestures before, but couldn't remember where. Back in the blue suite, while Lucy took a nap to make up for her sleepless night, Sophia sat by the window, contemplating the gardens below. The gardener Paul continued working, and the familiarity of his gestures still bothered her. It was when the man compulsively adjusted his shirt collar that the memory finally clicked. He's just like Ronald Vance, Sophia murmured to herself, remembering how the event coordinator had the same nervous tic. The coincidence was too strange. Decided to share her observation, Sophia was about to wake her mother when a waitress gently knocked at the door. Miss Sophia? I've brought an afternoon snack, the young woman announced, entering with a tray of biscuits and hot chocolate. As the waitress arranged the tray on a small table, she discreetly slid a small folded paper to Sophia. For you, she whispered, before quickly leaving. Intrigued, Sophia carefully unfolded the paper. The message was simple, written in cursive. Be careful. There are eyes and ears everywhere. Sophia's heart raced. Who had sent that warning? And what exactly did it mean? Tucking the note into her pocket, she returned to the window. The gardener, Paul, had disappeared. A few hours later, Edward returned from the city, where he had held the press conference as planned. His expression was grave when he met with Lucy and Sophia in the mansion's library. "We have a problem," he announced without preamble. "Someone leaked photos of the golden box to the press, along with insinuations that the donation was fraudulent." "Oh no," Lucy murmured, paling. "I managed to control the damage for now, reaffirming my commitment to the hospital and announcing the double donation amount. But it's clear there's an informant somewhere." "Mr. Montrose," Sophia interrupted timidly, "I think there's something you need to know." She told him about her observations of the gardener, Paul, and his strange behavioral resemblance to Ronald Vance, and also showed him the anonymous note she had received. Edward and George exchanged worried glances. "I'll check on this, Paul, immediately," George said, leaving the library. "Sophia, this is a very important observation," Edward said seriously. "Your attention to detail is truly impressive." "I learned from my grandfather," she replied, touching the locket around her neck. "He used to say that small gestures reveal big secrets." "A wise man," Edward commented. "George will check on this employee, but until we're sure, I suggest you two remain inside the house. The gardens are temporarily off limits." As night fell over the Windsor Hills, the tension at Pine Ridge Manor was palpable. Dinner was served in the small dining room adjacent to the kitchen, for security reasons. Edward, Lucy and Sophia ate in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, when George entered in a hurry. "Sir, the gardener Paul has disappeared," he announced. "No one has seen him since mid-afternoon. We checked his ID. It's fake." "Damn," Edward murmured, putting down his fork. "Reinforce security immediately. No one enters or leaves the property without a full check." "It's already being done, sir." George hesitated before continuing. "There's one more thing. We received information that Victor Maxwell is holding an emergency meeting with his executives tonight. Apparently he's celebrating something." "The article about the fraudulent donation," Edward concluded, his expression hardening. "He thinks his plan is working." Sophia, who had been silent during dinner, finally spoke. "If he's celebrating, it's because he doesn't know we've discovered everything, right?" Edward looked at the girl, an idea beginning to form in his mind. "Sophia, you are absolutely right, and that gives us an advantage." "What do you mean?" Lucy asked, concerned by the strategic glint in the businessman's eyes. "It means we can turn the tables," Edward replied. "Victor thinks he's winning, but he has no idea what's coming next." In the quiet of the country night, while Lucy and Sophia tried to sleep despite their anxiety, Edward and George devised a daring plan in the library. The corporate war had escalated to unexpected levels, but now Edward had something Victor didn't expect, the element of surprise, and all thanks to the astute observation of a 12-year-old girl, who had learned from her grandfather the importance of noticing the small details. The next morning dawned with a thin mist covering the Windsor Hills, enveloping Pine Ridge Manor in an ethereal veil. Sophia woke early, observing the foggy landscape from the window while her mother still slept. The last few days had been so intense that reality seemed to blend with the plots of the TV shows her Aunt Clara religiously followed. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Taking care not to wake Lucy, Sophia opened the door, finding Teresa with a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Miss Sophia," the housekeeper greeted in a low voice. "Mr. Montrose asked me to deliver this to you along with this message." Sophia accepted the tray and a sealed envelope with the Montrose Holdings logo. Inside, she found a handwritten note. "Sophia, your observation about the fake gardener was extremely valuable. Thanks to you, we managed to identify a second infiltrator on the property. Please come to the office at 9 a.m. for an important conversation. Your mother will be welcome too, of course. Edward Montrose." Intrigued, Sophia gently woke her mother, showing her the note after allowing Lucy to take a few sips of coffee. "What do you think he discovered?" Lucy asked, still sleepy but quickly becoming alert. "I don't know, but he seemed excited in the message," Sophia replied, nibbling on a piece of toast with strawberry jam. "Do you think they caught the man who was pretending to be a gardener?" Lucy checked the clock on the wall. "It's 8:20 a.m. We have enough time to get ready calmly before finding out." At exactly 9 a.m., mother and daughter knocked on the door of Edward's office, located in a reserved wing of the mansion. George opened the door, his demeanor serious as always, but with a different glint in his eye, something close to satisfaction. "Good morning, Mrs. Albright Sophia," he greeted formally. "Mr. Montrose is waiting." The office was an elegant space with mahogany bookshelves and a large desk overlooking the gardens. Edward stood to receive them, looking more rested than the day before. "Thank you for coming," he said, indicating the comfortable armchairs in front of his desk. "We have significant news that I would like to share with you." "Did you find the fake gardener?" Sophia asked immediately, unable to contain her curiosity. Edward smiled. "Yes and no. Paul, if that's his real name, managed to leave the property last night. However, his hasty escape provided us with valuable clues." He gestured to George, who placed a folder on the table. After Sophia mentioned the behavioral similarities between Paul and Ronald Vance, "We decided to investigate further," George explained. "We analyzed security camera footage and discovered something fascinating. Despite being physically different, their movement patterns are virtually identical." "How so?" Lucy asked, intrigued. "The way they walk, how they gesticulate, the nervous tics. Everything indicates they received the same training," Edward replied. "This is a known technique in high-level corporate operations. Companies hire specialists to create behavioral duplicates, people trained to imitate the gestures and habits of key individuals." "What for?" Sophia seemed confused. "To create confusion and gain access to privileged information," George explained. "If someone notices suspicious behaviors in Paul, for example, and then sees Ronald making the same gestures, the tendency is to think it's a coincidence or imagination. It's a level of sophistication that confirms our suspicions about Victor Maxwell," Edward concluded. "Only someone with considerable resources could orchestrate an operation of this caliber." "But that's not the most important thing," he continued, opening the folder George had brought. "The real breakthrough came from elsewhere. Last night, after the article about the alleged fraudulent donation, I received an anonymous call from someone inside Dawnstar Construction." "An informant?" Lucy asked, surprised. "Exactly. Apparently, not everyone in the company approves of Victor's methods. This person provided crucial information about the scheme and, more importantly, documentary evidence." Edward pulled some photographs from the folder. "These were taken at a secret meeting between Victor Maxwell and Marcus, 2 weeks before the charity event." Sophia and Lucy examined the photos carefully. In them, Marcus and a middle-aged man, grey-haired and with a stern expression, presumably Victor, were talking in a discreet restaurant. "This proves the connection," Lucy commented. "Yes, but there's more," Edward replied, showing other documents. "Our informant also provided proof of bank transfers to offshore accounts linked to Marcus and Ronald, as well as electronic correspondence detailing parts of the plan. With this evidence, I have already activated my legal department to prepare a lawsuit against Victor Maxwell and Dawnstar Construction." "And what about Marcus?" Sophia asked. "Has he been found?" George and Edward exchanged glances before the head of security responded. "Yes, Marcus was located in Birmingham last night, attempting to board a flight to Ireland. He is in police custody now." "So it's over?" Lucy questioned, hopeful. "Can we go home?" Edward stood up, walking to the window before answering. "Technically, yes. With Marcus detained and sufficient evidence against Victor Maxwell, the immediate danger to you has considerably decreased." He turned, facing mother and daughter with a serious expression. "However, I would like to propose something different." "What do you mean?" Lucy seemed apprehensive. "Lucy, you have worked at the Imperial Palms Hotel for almost 20 years, always with exemplary dedication, but limited to a position that does not fully recognize your managerial capabilities and your integrity." Lucy blushed slightly, uncomfortable with the direct compliment. "I just do my job, Mr. Montrose." "Precisely why I want to offer you a new position," Edward continued. "Montrose Holdings is expanding its hotel division, with 3 new properties opening next year. I need someone with your experience and irreproachable character to oversee the implementation of service standards and staff training." Lucy's eyes widened. "You're offering me a job at your company?" "A director-level position, to be more specific, with a significantly higher salary, full benefits, and profit sharing." Edward smiled. "Your perspective as someone who has worked in all operational roles of a luxury hotel would be invaluable to us." Sophia watched her mother, noticing the conflict in her eyes, a mixture of hope, distrust, and pride. "Mr. Montrose, this is extremely generous, but I can't help but think it's a form of compensation for what happened, Lucy replied carefully. I don't want to seem ungrateful, but I prefer to earn positions on merit, not by circumstance. I understand your concern, Edward replied sincerely, and it is precisely that kind of integrity that I seek in my executive team, but I assure you that this offer is not charity or compensation. It is a recognition of professional value that should have happened a long time ago. He walked to his desk, picking up another folder. Here is your complete employment record, which I requested from the Imperial Palms. 20 years without a single complaint, numerous compliments from VIP guests, 5 internal awards for excellence, and your suggestions that saved millions in operational processes. Edward placed the folder in front of Lucy. This is not circumstance, Mrs. Albright. It is undeniable merit. Lucy slowly opened the folder, flipping through documents that summarized 2 decades of dedication. And what about Sophia? She finally asked, looking at her daughter. Changing jobs would mean changing cities, schools. As for that, Edward interjected, turning to Sophia with a genuine smile, I also have a proposal. Sophia has demonstrated exceptional perception and admirable character for someone so young. Grandpa Sebastian always said that character has no age, Sophia commented shyly. And he was absolutely right, Edward agreed. Therefore, I would like to offer Sophia a full scholarship to the Montrose boarding school in Windsor, one of the best educational institutions in the country. It is a boarding school with excellent academic training, personal development programs, and opportunities that would be fertile ground for a brilliant mind like hers. Sophia looked at the businessman with wide eyes. A boarding school? But what about my mother? I don't want to be away from her. The school is only 20 minutes from the hotel division headquarters, Edward explained. And of course, we would provide a comfortable residence for your mother in the city, allowing you to be together every weekend and holiday. Lucy took her daughter's hand in hers. Sophia, this is an extraordinary opportunity for your future, the kind of education I could never provide with my current salary. Sophia hesitated, torn between excitement for the new possibilities and fear of change. Can I think about it for a bit? Of course, Edward replied. I wouldn't expect anything less from someone so thoughtful. Both of you can take the time you need to decide. He paused. But I must mention that, regardless of whether you accept my proposals or not, I have already arranged an educational fund for Sophia. It is officially established and cannot be revoked. What? Lucy seemed astonished. But that's the least I can do, Edward completed firmly. This fund will ensure that Sophia has access to the best possible education, including university in the UK or abroad, regardless of any other circumstances. Tears began to form in Lucy's eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you will seriously consider my job offer, Edward replied with a smile. Montrose Holdings needs people like you, Lucy. People who value truth and integrity above convenience and appearances. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent knock at the door. George answered, receiving a message from another security guard. His normally impassive face showed a rare smile of satisfaction. Mr. Montrose, we just received confirmation. The operation was a success. The National Crime Agency has just raided Dawnstar Construction headquarters with search warrants. Victor Maxwell is being taken in for questioning right now. Edward nodded, satisfied. Excellent. It seems the wheels of justice have started to turn faster than we expected. How did you manage that so quickly? Lucy asked, impressed. Let's just say the evidence provided by our informant was particularly convincing, Edward replied, and some of it suggested irregularities that go far beyond our small dispute. Overvalued contracts with public bodies, large-scale tax evasion, money laundering. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of events. Victor Maxwell's preventive arrest was decreed after the discovery of incriminating evidence in his personal office. Marcus, seeking a plea bargain, began to reveal details of the operation against Edward Montrose and other illicit schemes of Dawnstar Construction. A week after the charity event that had changed their lives, Lucy and Sophia found themselves again in the library of Pine Ridge Manor, this time to communicate their decision to Edward. We accept your proposals, Lucy announced, her voice firm despite suppressed emotion. After much reflection and conversations with Sophia, we realized it would be unwise to refuse an opportunity that can transform our lives so positively. Edward smiled, genuinely pleased. You have made the right decision. I am sure you will both achieve extraordinary success in your new paths. I only have one condition, Lucy added, her professional tone surprising the businessman. I want to start from scratch, to prove my worth on my own merits. No special treatment or shortcuts because of what happened. I accept your condition, Edward replied promptly, although I must warn you that I expect absolute excellence and dedication. I have never offered less, Lucy retorted with a confident smile. And what about you, Sophia? Edward asked, turning to the girl. Are you ready for Montrose boarding school? Sophia took a deep breath before answering. I'm a little scared, but Grandpa Sebastian always said that fear is just the first step of courage. She touched the locket around her neck. He would have encouraged me to accept the challenge. Your grandfather seems to have been an extraordinarily wise man, Edward commented. I wish I had known him. You did know him, in a way, Sophia replied, through me, when I decided to do the right thing about the fake money. Edward nodded, moved by the profound simplicity of the observation. There's one more thing I'd like to share with you, he said, standing up to retrieve a document from his desk. The Renaissance Children's Hospital will receive not only the doubled donation I publicly promised, but a commitment of permanent funding for the new oncology ward, and it will be named in honor of Sebastian Albright. Silent tears streamed down Lucy's face, while Sophia looked at Edward in astonishment. Why? The girl simply asked. Because your grandfather, through the values he instilled in you, saved much more than my reputation, Sophia. He saved the hope of thousands of children who will be treated in that ward in the coming years. Edward smiled gently. Some people leave legacies in the form of buildings or fortunes. Sebastian left something much more valuable, a legacy of integrity that will continue through you. In the months that followed, Lucy and Sophia's lives transformed in ways they could never have imagined. Lucy proved to be a brilliant executive, revolutionizing the service standards of Montrose Holdings' hotel division with her practical experience and innovative vision. Sophia adapted to Montrose boarding school with surprising ease, excelling academically and developing new friendships. The inauguration of the Sebastian Albright ward at the Renaissance Children's Hospital became an event widely covered by the media, symbolizing not only Edward Montrose's generosity, but also the triumph of integrity over corruption. Victor Maxwell, now facing multiple criminal charges, watched from afar as Montrose Holdings experienced exponential growth, while his own company crumbled under the weight of scandals. One Sunday afternoon, almost a year after the fateful charity event, Sophia walked through the gardens of Pine Ridge Manor, which had become a frequent refuge for her and her mother on weekends. Edward joined her, observing the country landscape. You know, Sophia, he commented thoughtfully, I often wonder what would have happened if you hadn't noticed that the money in the golden box was fake. Sophia reflected for a moment. Probably Mr. Victor's plan would have worked. The scandal would have harmed you, and worse, the hospital wouldn't have received the necessary support. Exactly. And all of that was avoided thanks to a simple touch, Edward said. The instant your fingers felt that something wasn't right with those notes. Grandpa Sebastian used to say that truth has its own texture, Sophia replied with a smile. We can't always see it, but we can feel it. Edward nodded, once again admiring the wisdom the young girl carried. And I hope you never lose that ability to feel the truth, even when others around you cannot see it. As the sun set over the Windsor Hills, painting the sky with golden hues, reminiscent of the box that had changed so many destinies, Sophia understood that her grandfather Sebastian's greatest inheritance was not the locket she wore around her neck, but the values that now guided her life, the courage to do what was right, even when difficult, and the conviction that truth, no matter how hard it tries to hide, always finds a way to come to light. Your grandfather was right, and at that moment she knew that no matter where life took her or what challenges she faced, she would always be true to that legacy, a legacy that, as her grandfather always said, was the only value that never lost its price. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope Lucy and Sophia's story has touched your hearts. To continue this journey of emotions, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it here by clicking to your left. If you enjoyed this narrative about integrity and courage, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of British life in its diverse facets. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to reading your comments and knowing which moment of this story touched you the most. Until next time.